continued to paralyze me for a long period of time was an obsession with happiness. I'm not a happy person, and that's okay.
A lot of people would look at that life of, I'm going to sacrifice evenings and I'm not going to watch football anymore, and say, well, what's the point? If you make yourself miserable en route to achieving the goal,
Totally.
if most of your life is journey, not destination, and it makes you miserable en route to it, why do that?
So that was the thing I was mentioning earlier, where it's like, let's take the absolute extreme of it's going to suck and it's going to last forever. How can I be okay in that circumstance? And I do have the fundamental belief that circumstance has nothing to do with what your subjective well-being is. And so if monks can be super chill in wherever monks do monk things and have nothing and have higher subjective well-being ratings than anyone else here in the Western world, it clearly isn't external. And so then if I'm going to be just as miserable being mediocre as I am doing this shit that's going to amount to something, then I might as well do the shit that's going to amount to something and be miserable there and at least have something to show for it.
There's this story I learned about Victor Hugo, famous writer from history. Do you know this about what he did with his servant?
Mm-mm.
So Victor Hugo needed to make himself right. So he paid his servant each night during the middle of the night to come into his bedroom and remove the bedclothes from him, turn the heating off, and then lock his bedroom door from the outside. And he wasn't allowed to leave until Victor slid 6 pages of handwritten work underneath. So, you know, you look at Opal, which is this app for iPhone, which stops you from using apps, or Frozen Turkey, Cold Turkey, which is the same thing for desktop. And that's just the digital equivalent of Victor Hugo being locked in his bedroom with no bedding and just a quill and a few pieces of paper, and then having to slide it underneath the door.
And I want to push back on something that you said right before Victor Hugo, which is, you know, somebody might ask, like, why would you do all this stuff if you're not happy? That assumes that my goal in life is to be happy.
What is your goal in life?
To do epic shit. Genuinely. To be useful. And so,
why place do epic shit over be happy?
Because when I look back on my life in retrospect, the things that bring me the most joy in the moment are the things that I was willing to sacrifice for an extended period of time. And those pay memory dividends far greater than the momentary cost that I had in the moment. And so I think it's a long-term, short-term thing. But a frame that continued to paralyze me for a long period of time was an obsession with happiness. Like, it was truly an obsession. It was an obsession of mine in college. I almost got into positive psychology because I thought that was really interesting. And that's my passion, right? I consumed all that stuff and I drove myself mad with it. And I actually was more sad and depressed than anything, which is probably why I was trying to find all this positive, hippy dippy stuff. And I just cracked one day and I was like, fuck happiness. Because it felt so out of reach that I was like, just fuck it. I'm not even going to shoot for it. I'm just going to do stuff. And that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to do stuff. And what happened was, like, a few years later, a few years later, I looked up and I was like, I'm not miserable. And so I actually identified for a very long period of time as, I'm not a happy person, and that's okay. I'm fine with that. I accept that. And there was this huge conflict for such a long period of time where I was like, you're supposed to be happy. Why aren't you happier? Like, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with you. Something needs to change. Rather than saying, like, maybe the level of happy that you are is fine. Who am I? Like, what happy am I comparing myself to? And also, if wherever your current state is, if you just say, like, happier, which is really when people are like, I want to be happy, they're just saying I want to be happier than I am, which means that you create this distance between where you are and where you want to be, which is the recipe for being unhappy, is saying that I want to be happier. So it doesn't matter how happy you are, you want to be happier. And so by relinquishing the desire to be happy, I ended up enjoying a lot more of the stuff that I was doing because I didn't make it a requisite for my activities. So then it became a pleasant surprise. I was like, oh, this doesn't suck. How nice.